Rod Rosenstein, all of a sudden this morning, he's the deputy attorney general. He was appointed to oversee the Mueller probe after Jeff Sessions, the actual attorney general, recused himself, which obviously Trump didn't like because Trump doesn't actually know that the Justice Department is supposed to be separate from the executive branch. So basically, Rosenstein has been overseeing the Russia probe. You know what I think about the Russia probe? I think it's a whole lot of propaganda and hot air made and put out there in the media to make you think that we are now at the Cold War 2.0 and distract from the real reasons we have Donald Trump, which aren't Russia, but the fact that the majority of the country is poor, that a huge swath of the country have had their jobs shipped to other countries, and the fact that the Democratic Party abandoned the working class pretty much starting out in the 70s. I always keep it real. Now, is it possible? Did Russia, employ trolls and propaganda to try and, sow discord? Absolutely. But so does the United States. Much worse, by the way, than that. So, what Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, a New York Times piece, had come out saying that he was going to wear a wire at one point in a conversation with Trump, and that he was talking about they need to exercise the 25th Amendment, which would be cabinet officials basically removing Trump. So obviously Trump wasn't happy about that, and the White House wasn't happy about that. So cable news and all the pundits on Twitter this morning, all in a tizzy, because Rod Rosenstein was going over to meet with the Chief of Staff, John Kelly, and everybody thought, this is it. They're going to fire Rod Rosenstein. This means that they're going to appoint basically their own puppet in to oversee the Mueller probe and essentially get rid of the Mueller probe, or essentially make it so it can't actually investigate. Because Rod Rosenstein has been the person Mueller has to go to get things approved, whether they're going to prosecute certain people or need extra resources or whatever. And as a reminder, Jake said it. This is a super chat, so leave some coin this Monday morning. Or if you haven't contributed yet, there's the GoFundMe link. I'll put the GoFundMe link in here again. I want to get to 5,000 by the end of today, so we'll see if we can do it. We're at 4,600 now. And if you don't know about the GoFundMe, this is all so we can get back in the field. Me and Ty want to get back in the field. There's certain stories that I'm dying to go cover. In particular, this week, I'm thinking about going down to Dallas. I want to go cover the protests that are going on after another black man, this time killed in his actual apartment as a white police officer, had the wrong apartment and went and shot him dead. So I'm going to get to that story after this. So Rosenstein goes to the White House this morning, meets with John Kelly, isn't fired, and doesn't resign. So, of course, the pundits who all said this is what's going to happen had it wrong. Well, guess what? Now, Trump, it is reality TV. Trump's very good at this. Trump wants to meet with Rod Rosenstein on Thursday. So, why does he want to meet on Thursday? Well, what else is happening on Thursday? The Senate Judiciary Committee is going to have Christine Ford, the California professor who has come out accusing Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault. She is set to testify on Thursday, as is Brett Kavanaugh. So Trump just coincidentally, wants to meet with the Deputy Attorney General on Thursday, and there's going to be a drip, drip, drip. Is he going to fire him? Is he going to resign? What's going to happen? And basically Trump is trying to distract from the Christine Ford hearing to basically the Republicans at this point. They're probably going to lose. Probably the House, I would say definitely it looks like the House, possibly the Senate. So Trump is trying to do anything possible to at least get Kavanaugh through, because not getting Kavanaugh through would very much upset his base, and Republicans are very worried that's going to depress turnout even more. And Trump, of course, he's afraid of going to prison, but he also doesn't want the Democrats to take control of both the House and the Senate, because then he knows impeachment is coming. Why I think this is super important. By the way, just so you know, there is another woman who has come forward over the weekend. The New Yorker has a piece that there's another woman. Her name is, let's see, Deborah Ramirez, who is a 53-year-old woman who went to college with Brett Kavanaugh, and she is accusing Brett Kavanaugh of taking his genitals out at a college dorm party and thrusting his penis on her without her consent. Her accusation, if you read the New Yorker piece, is a little bit more tepid than Christine Ford's. She does acknowledge there are gaps in her memory. She took several days to make sure she felt strong enough that this was indeed Brett Kavanaugh who did this at a party, and now she has come out and said not only that she believes this was Brett Kavanaugh and she remembers people chanting, Brett Kavanaugh just put his penis on this girl at the party, but she says there should be an FBI investigation. So now you have two women accusing Brett Kavanaugh of this. And why I think this is important, I think Trump is going to fire Rod Rosenstein on Thursday. I think for two reasons. Number one, he wants the if he were to fire Rod Rosenstein previously, before this New York Times article came out, then he would have a real problem because it would come off like obstruction of justice. He's firing the person that stepped in to oversee the Mueller probe, who isn't doing his bidding because Rod Rosenstein has essentially let Mueller do what he needs to do in the investigation. But after this New York Times story that alleged or claimed sources said Rod Rosenstein had said, thought he might go into a meeting with Trump wearing a wire and had made comments about invoking the 25th Amendment on Trump, Trump will feel he has more just cause to fire Rod Rosenstein without it looking like obstruction of justice. So that's number one. I think you're going to see Trump fire Rod Rosenstein on Thursday. I think he's going to wait in the day so that when he does fire Rod Rosenstein, it is right in the critical time that Christine Ford is testifying in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Because if Trump is good at one thing, it is manipulating the hell out of the media. And as we know, we talk about it on this channel all the time, the corporate media is not exactly journalists, capital J. They are a bunch of puppets that basically parade around and basically sensationalize news and make it into sport. That's what the corporate media does. So they might be paying attention to Christine Ford's testimony 1 minute, and then Trump fires Rod Rosenstein, and they go like dogs that get distracted onto the next thing. So essentially what Trump is trying to do is cover up the Ford hearings, distract onto something else, which would be a pretty big bombshell if he does fire Rod Rosenstein. So this theory by me, apparently, is exactly what he wants to do. This is from Gabe Sherman in the Vanity Fair. I'll read it to you. The strategy was to try and do something really big. Trump wanted to nuke Rosenstein to save Kavanaugh's bacon. At the beginning of one of the most consequential weeks of Donald Trump's presidency, an enormous smoke bomb was detonated in the news cycle when Axios, deeply wired in Trump's West Wing, reported that Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein had, quote, offered to resign. Quickly, a head-spinning array of conflicting accounts were put forth. Had he been fired? Was he heading to the White House to be fired? Or was he going to do a regularly scheduled meeting? Finally, Sarah Huckabee Sanders brought a measure of clarity by tweeting that whatever was going to happen to Rosenstein would happen on Thursday when the president returned to New York. For all the morning's madness, there may have been an underlying logic. Over the weekend, as Brett Kavanaugh's prospects appeared increasingly imperiled, Trump faced two tactical options, both of them fraught. One was to cut Kavanaugh loose, but he was also looking for ways to dramatically shift the news cycle away from his embattled Supreme Court nominee. According to a source briefed on Trump's thinking, Trump decided that firing Rosenstein would knock Kavanaugh out of the news, potentially saving his nomination and Republicans' chances for keeping the Senate. Quote, the strategy was to try and do something really big, the source said. The leak about Rosenstein's resignation could have been the result, and it certainly had the desired effect of driving Kavanaugh out of the news cycle for a few hours. Rosenstein still has his job, at least until Thursday, leaving open multiple possibilities regarding the underlying reality. Regardless, Trump has wanted to fire Rosenstein from the moment he read the New York Times article that reported Rosenstein had discussed secretly tape recording Trump and rallying cabinet secretaries to invoke the 25th Amendment. I actually thought this is exactly what was happening, and then I found this piece to reinforce it before I went live. So, why is this important? Why am I telling you? Why am I starting out this Monday basically talking about the Trump and the palace intrigue about Rod Rosenstein and all this, because I don't think there's any doubt really that Trump is going to fire Rod Rosenstein. He now has, I would say, I don't think it's just cause, but he could say, I have just cause to fire the Deputy Attorney General who oversees the Russia investigation because he either seriously or joked about wearing a wire or basically a coup d'etat of my administration, which would be invoking the 25th Amendment. So that way, Trump and probably his lawyers are telling him we can skirt around the thought of obstruction of justice of the Mueller probe. And of course, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket science. He's waiting till Thursday because Christine Ford is going to testify. And whatever you think of her accusations, if you're just coming to this late, another woman has come forward, Deborah Ramirez, saying that in college at a freshman year dorm party at Yale, Brett Kavanaugh thrust his penis on her. She did not consent and essentially put it in her face and made her to touch it before she got away. This is very damning stuff. 2 women, obviously, with most of these men, you start seeing a pattern of multiple women coming out saying similar things. But the bottom line is this. Why do I find this important? Because well, first of all, it's important because these women should be heard, and because I think it's more than likely true that Brett Kavanaugh is guilty of this. But if Trump is going to fire Rod Rosenstein on Thursday, which I think he's going to, I think he's doing it to distract, like I said, well, what you're going to have there is an absolute, almost positivity that you're going to see unprecedented turnout in the midterms from Democrats. And I'm not talking only about progressive Democrats. I'm talking about your establishment auntie and uncle. I think if Trump fires Rod Rosenstein, basically to get rid of him and to distract so that Brett Kavanaugh could get on the Supreme Court, I think there's more than likely a definite likelihood that the Democrats are going to have unprecedented turnout and they are going to win the House and most likely the Senate. Now, for the resistance, that's a great thing. We take back Congress, we take the House, we take the Senate, and now we can impeach Trump. For progressives who actually want not only to get rid of Donald Trump, but to actually put progressive Democrats in charge to challenge Trump, but also challenge the corrupt Democratic Party establishment. I can't do pom-poms here. Do I think Trump is bad? Yes. It's frustrating that I have to put a disclaimer out there constantly, but whenever you say it's not just about Trump, it's about the corrupt corporate Democrats, you're accused of being a Russian propaganda, agent of the Kremlin. I am saying I think Trump firing Rod Rosenstein is going to end up putting the Nancy Pelosi wing of the Democratic Party back in charge. I think Trump firing Rosenstein is going to basically, in one breath, galvanize the Democratic base. Oh, this is one step too far. This is past the red line, and we are in an unprecedented constitutional crisis because Trump is basically firing the person who's supposed to independently oversee the criminal investigation into Trump's campaign. And I think it's going to galvanize the Democratic base. And as a result, I think you're going to see the Democrats retake the House and the Senate. I also think you're going to see much more heated opposition against progressives to basically say, like they did with Hillary Clinton, shut up Jordan, shut up Jimmy Dore, shut up all these people. We need to defeat the Republicans. Look what Donald Trump is doing. He has fired Rod Rosenstein. He is an unprecedented threat to democracy. And we need to, bite your tongue, suck it up, and vote for establishment Democrats and vote for the Democrats so they will take out the Republicans. That's what I think is going to happen. And unfortunately, I think they might be successful because I think the Democratic Party obviously has not learned their lessons from 2016. They're still running based on how much can we fundraise. They're still running based on the stale politics of job training, expanding Obamacare, tax cuts for the middle class, which is all window dressing, as we know. They're basically running on continued crumbs for the masses. as we keep our cocktail parties with Wall Street, big oil, big pharma, and Silicon Valley. So, it's one thing if the Democratic Party is going to take over the House and the Senate, but you're actually going to have more progressives become Democratic congressmen or senators. But I think what you're actually going to see is the Democratic Party, if and when Rosenstein gets fired, they're basically going to say, we need to elect the Democrats that are electable. We need to go elect, the establishment Democrats. And you're going to start seeing a lot more pressure on progressives to come out and vote for the Beto O'Rourke's in Texas. And you know what? I don't like Ted Cruz. And if I lived in Texas, even though I don't think Beto O'Rourke is actually a progressive, based on his voting record and the donations he takes in, I would vote for Beto O'Rourke because I think it's different on a state level. Beto O'Rourke is not going to have an office if he becomes a senator. He can't bring the United States to war. The president can. He could vote for it, but for example, if you're looking at Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump versus a Beto O'Rourke versus Ted Cruz, I am a lot more likely, based on the fact that Ted Cruz I think is horrendous, to just hold my nose and vote for a Beto O'Rourke if that's the only option. I feel different when the vote is for president. I feel much different when the vote is for president, because the president has a hell of a lot more power than one senator. That's for sure. So I think this is a mixed bag. On one end, do I like the Republican Party? No. But what I fear is Rosenstein's going to be fired, and then the Democratic Party citing, oh, this is an unprecedented threat, vote blue no matter who, as we're hearing, vote blue no matter who, and we're basically going to put back in the Obama-Clinton Democrats to take over. And all the focus then will be on impeaching Trump and Trump, and they're going to they're going to try for everyone to go back to sleep economically, to not fight for Medicare for all, to not fight them, the Democratic Party, on Medicare for all, to not fight them, the Democratic Party, on free public college, to not fight them, the Democratic Party, on ending private prisons, to not fight them, the Democratic Party, on ending fracking. They are going to call for a uniform disarmament of the progressive movement and to tell us to suck it up and vote Democrat and to fall in line. Sorry, I'm not doing it. Do I think it would be bad if Trump fires Rosenstein? Yes. Do I think the Russia investigation is needed? Yeah, because I think there's probably clear evidence that Trump engaged in money laundering with Russia, and I think that should come out. And I think he's done money laundering with Saudi Arabia and other countries as a private businessman, and probably while he was a candidate. That's what I've always thought Mueller is going to find the most evidence of, money laundering, not collusion, which really doesn't even have a true legal term, a true legal definition. So I'm not against there being a Russia investigation. I think there should be. I've been against the unprecedented propaganda and hysteria over the Russia investigation that we've had to consume for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2 years. Jesus Christ. So that's what I've been against. Not the fact that there is an investigation, the fact that this has literally been the Democratic Party's lesson from 2016. Not to actually read the polls that say Medicare for All is polling 70%. 70% among people in America, 85% among the Democratic Party, 52% among the Republican Party. They want you to fall back asleep. They want to say Trump, fired Rosenstein, Russia, Trump, and fall asleep and not hold the Democratic Party as accountable as they want you to hold Trump. You could do both. So, it's up to you. But just know what's coming. You are going to, if Rosenstein is fired, you are going to be told, fall in line. You're going to be told, suck it up. We don't have the luxury of voting, for your perfect progressive candidate, and go and vote for the Democratic candidate running for Congress and the Senate where you live. That's what you're going to be told. So, totally up to you. Totally up to you. But that's what's going on. The meeting is scheduled for Thursday between Rosenstein and Trump on the same day that Christine Ford, the woman who accused Brett Kavanaugh, is scheduled to testify. And who knows? Between now and Thursday, we don't know if other news organizations are working on, more women that might come out of the woodwork and accuse Kavanaugh. Right now, we have Christine Ford that had made the accusation of Brett Kavanaugh and a friend pinning her down and trying to rape her during a high school party. And now we have Deborah Ramirez, who has come out and said during a college party at Yale while Kavanaugh was a freshman that he took out his penis and thrust it in her face and had her touch it against her will. Like I said in the beginning of this video, the Ramirez allegation is a little less, I wouldn't say strong, but it's a little less certain. The accuser is admittedly saying, I'm less certain. She says she has gaps in her memory, and she took several days to come out publicly on the record. But she says that this did happen, and she didn't know that it was Brett Kavanaugh at the time. She didn't know who he was, but she heard someone screaming, Brett Kavanaugh just put his penis in this girl's face, like making a joke at me. So my thoughts, I think when you have more women coming out, I don't think two women are confusing Brett Kavanaugh with someone else. I really don't. I think that's very far-fetched and hard to believe. And I think that particularly in Christine Ford's case, for reasons I stated in my videos last week, I have no reason to think she's not telling the truth. And now that you have another woman claiming that Brett Kavanaugh did this, and you have other people saying that Brett Kavanaugh was known as a partier and a drinker in high school and college, as were a lot of people in his high school, I think it was a prep school and college, it is a he said, she said at this point, but you do have multiple women saying the same thing, the same type of aggressive, unsolicited, unwanted behavior.